Hey everyone, welcome to the Royce Reports. I am your host, Royce, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about if there is actually an Xbox tax or a bias against Xbox in the media. And this all stems from Call of Duty getting a 4 from IGN. So, let's talk about it. So if you've seen the review for IGN's review on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, they gave it a 4 out of 10. This is just the campaign side of things. This isn't the multiplayer and everything else. But they're saying this is one of the worst Call of Duty campaigns in a long while. And of course, because of the fact that Xbox owns ABK, a lot of people are trying to connect the dots here and try to think that maybe IGN is giving it this grade because they know Xbox is now associated with Call of Duty. Now, before we get into that, I kind of want to go into the history of Xbox and bias towards that brand that the media seems to have against that brand. So this all stems from the Xbox One generation. During the Xbox One generation, as you know, there was kind of a bunch of exclusives that came out to the Xbox platform. We've had exclusives like Rise of Rome, ReCore, Quantum Break, Killer Instinct, Sea of Thieves, all these other games come out during the Xbox One generation. And for the most part, some of these games ended up getting critically panned for weird reasons. Like if you go back and you look at some of the Metacritics for these games, for example, Rise, Son of Rome, it's sitting at a 60 Metacritic. Now, if you go and you play Rise, Son of Rome, I've never gone into Rise, Son of Rome and sat there and said, wow, I'm enjoying this game so much, I'd probably give it a D. If I could give it a letter rating, it would be a D, equivalent to a D, almost an F, a D minus. That is what that is saying, essentially. That game is a pretty bad game in all accounts based off of these reviews. But it's actually not at all. If you go back and play Rise, Son of Rome, it's one of the most fun Xbox One games out there. It's very, very beautiful. It's a very beautiful game, but it's also very easy to get into. It's fun to just mess around in, and I can't believe that game ended up getting a 60. That is not an accurate score for that game. And there's other games like ReCore, which also scored pretty low. ReCore ended up with a 63. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that ReCore is a 90 Metacritic game. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm telling you right now that if you play ReCore, you're not going to sit there and think that that game is a 63. It's at least maybe low 70s, mid 70s. It's not a bad game. And what's even really crazy to think about is Remedy was working with Xbox for a really long time. Before Alan Wake 2, there was Alan Wake, which was exclusive to the Xbox 360 platform for 10 years. And then after that, they worked with them again on Quantum Break. Quantum Break ended up releasing in 2016, and it ended up releasing at 77, which is not a bad score by any means. But if you play Quantum Break, which I am actually currently going and playing this game right now, that is not a 77 game. That game, I haven't finished it, but wow, that game is blowing me away. That game is at least a mid 80s to me. So it's so weird that these games that are way better than what they're being listed as are those scores. Like, how does that happen? Why does that happen? Does that happen because there is a bias against Xbox? And it appears to be that way, right? Because of just the reviews on themselves. Because you go and you still look at other games that have released even this year. Starfield famously getting a 7 out of 10 from IGN. And if you go and you sit there and you think, well, 7 out of 10 is not a bad game. By any means, it's not a bad game at all. Which is true. It's 7 out of 10 is a solid game. But at the same time, it's the messaging around the 7 out of 10 that IGN was doing. It wasn't just, okay, we gave the game a 7 out of 10. Here's our review, posted on Twitter, and here's a link to it. No, they kept reposting it. over and over and over. Just in case you didn't see that they gave it a 7 out of 10, they made sure that you were going to see it because they just kept reposting it. Now, giving a game a 7 out of 10 isn't media bias, but how you portray that 7 out of 10 is bias because you're flaunting it as if it's a badge of honor that you are giving this game a 7 out of 10. And when you look at all the other IGNs from other parts of the world that were giving this game a 10 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, they're the odd ones out. So why are you guys championing the fact that it's a 7 out of 10, which is very, very odd. And this is where it goes even deeper because it wasn't just the 7 out of 10 from Starfield that they were championing, right? It's also the fact that Elder Scrolls is going to be an exclusive for Xbox. And that's another story that they kept repeating over and over and over again, that they just wanted to throw out there as if they don't have anything else going on in the news. So they have to bring up old documents from the court from 2 years ago to tell you, hey, just a reminder, Elder Scrolls is exclusive to Xbox. Why do you need to continue to remind people that? Why is that something that you don't understand? Is that something that you're having a hard time grasping, that Xbox now owns Bethesda and all of its IP and can do whatever it wants with those IP? Like, is this a foreign concept to people? Well, it seems to be if it's only in the Xbox camp. Because when you go and you look back at the Rise of the Tomb Raider debacle that ended up happening back a few years ago. So Xbox ended up getting a timed exclusive on Rise of the Tomb Raider. And this sent people wild. They were seething at the teeth because they needed to know why Xbox would want to get Tomb Raider exclusive to their platform and how long they were going to wait and how much did it cost and why are you doing this? And all the media outlets just started to dogpile on Xbox until they got those answers. Now, that's fine and dandy, right? I get it. Timed exclusives suck, right? You are excited for a game, especially since the previous game came out on your platform. And then now the sequel to that game is being taken away from you. And that's a shitty feeling, right? And I get it. But what about Spider-Man? Because PlayStation could go and get Spider-Man exclusive and no one bats an eye. In fact, more people were upset about the fact that Spider-Man was coming to PC than the fact that Spider-Man was being exclusive to PlayStation. How does that work? Like, and the media doesn't even cover any of that. They're just accepting of this. And before you go and say that, okay, hold on, Sony owns Spider-Man. This is a very common misconception because Sony does not own the character of Spider-Man. Sony owns the movie rights to Spider-Man, and that is where their rights end. Everything else regarding Spider-Man is owned by Disney. They own the video games, they own the TV shows, they own comic books, they own merchandising. Everything else is owned by Disney, except for the movie rights. And that's the only thing that Sony actually owns. So because Sony owns that, that doesn't mean that they now can make a game on their own. But what's crazy is that Spider-Man is such a huge franchise that it shouldn't be exclusive. It shouldn't be tied down to one platform. And yet here we are, where they had 3 different entries in that Spider-Man series, all exclusive to PlayStation. And no one seems to care about that, but heaven forbid we get Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusive for a year. That was a huge, huge issue. That was a big outcry when they first announced that. So, combination with the reviews for the Xbox One generation and some of the reviews for this generation, I'm not counting Redfall because Redfall was actually pretty terrible. But you start looking at this and it seems like a common thread for Xbox. And you could probably ask yourself, well, is it the fact that Xbox games aren't as good as Nintendo games, as PlayStation games? Or is it because there is a bias against Xbox? And that's all up to you to decide. Because whenever I go back and I play those games, I'm not sitting there thinking, wow, these games are high 60s, low 60s. mid 70s. I'm thinking, okay, these are like high 70s, mid 80s. I'm not thinking that I don't think Quantum Break is a 90 Metacritic game. I'm not thinking that. I'm not saying that. And I'm not trying to get it to be that. I am trying to give Quantum Break a fair shake. And when I go and I play that game, it feels like a mid 80s to me. When I go back and I play Recore, or when I go back and play Rise, I'm not sitting there thinking, yeah, this is a D-. I'm thinking, this is like a solid C. This is a pretty fun game, and it looks great. But for some reason, these parties think differently. But it's not just reviews. It's not just coverage. It's also how reviews are for multi-platform games. Because multi-platform games also get more light on PlayStation. Alan Wake 2, right? A brand new game that just recently dropped. Everyone's talking about this game. It's a great game, apparently. And I'm actually building up myself to play this game. So I went and played Alan Wake. I played American Nightmares. I'm now working on Quantum Break. I'm going to jump into Control. And then I'm going to go and play Alan Wake 2. That's how I'm going to tackle this. So I'm excited about this. When you go to the Metacritic for Alan Wake, it's sitting at 89, which is really good. Some people are calling it Game of the Year. Now, when you go and you look at everything else regarding it, you look at the review scores and how many people are reviewing it on the platform, because you can see those things. Metacritic shows you these. So when you go and you look at PlayStation 5 and the amount of people that reviewed it on there, you end up getting around 62 critic reviews. On PC, you're getting around 45 critic reviews. On Xbox, it's actually sitting at a 93. Super impressive, right? Until you look at how many reviews are written for the Xbox. 11 reviews are written for the Xbox. Now, this is kind of odd to me because Alan Wake started on the 360. It is a game that is an Xbox game. That is where its history lies. Quantum Break, which is a part of this universe, of this Control Alan Wake universe, was on Xbox. So why are not more people reviewing it on Xbox? Because that's where most of the people should have been able to play that series. Is it because of review copies? Is it because of people having a preferred platform? These reviewers obviously favor PlayStation 5. Why is that? But this isn't just the only case. There's other cases as well. So if you look at another recent release, like a Dragon Gaiden, this also is very similar as well. So The Man Who Erased His Name is currently sitting at a 79 Metacritic. You go down, PlayStation 5 ends up having 43 critic reviews sitting at a 79. PC's 11 critic reviews sitting at a 77. And Xbox Series X has 13 sitting at a 78. This is a Game Pass day one entry. And yet, you would think that most of the people that are reviewing this are going to be reviewing it on that platform because that's where most people are probably going to be able to play that game because it's in your subscription. But yet it sits at a lower review count. And it's not just Like a Dragon. This also applies to Lies of P. Lies of P was a huge hit for the platform. The game itself sold very well. So when you go and you look at it, again, you're seeing the same exact thing. 70 critic reviews for PlayStation 5, 38 critic reviews for PC, and 23 critic reviews for Xbox. That does not add up in my head. Why aren't those numbers higher for Xbox? That means that people, these critics that are reviewing these games, are either not reviewing them on Xbox and they have a PlayStation 5 and that's their preferred platform. If that's your preferred platform, therefore you have a bias. Therefore, if you're going to review a game that's exclusive to Xbox, you're going to be upset because it's not on your preferred platform. That's just how things work naturally. It's mentally how it works. Not everybody can be unbiased. In fact, it's not human nature to be unbiased. You have bias. That is the whole point of being a human, or else you'd be a freaking robot over here. But why is that? That is always going to be a question that I have. So now let's hop back over to today and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 getting a 4 out of 10 on IGN. And if you ask me if that's bias at all, against Xbox, I am honestly going to say no. I don't think that's biased against Xbox at all. I think that Modern Warfare 3 is probably a bad game. Now, I haven't played it, so mind you that my opinion probably means nothing to you because I have not yet to play the Modern Warfare 3 campaign. But what I do know is everything that Sledgehammer touches in terms of Call of Duty is complete ass. 100%. They have not made a single good Call of Duty game since their existence. That is, and I'm not even kidding. Like, if you go and you look at the Sledgehammer Call of Duty games, they have not made a single good one. And they started out back on the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And that's probably their best game as of yet, was their first entry into the series. And what sucks about Modern Warfare 3, the original, is that it's the weakest of the Modern Warfare trilogy. So they started off with Modern Warfare 3, and then they went to Advanced Warfare, and then they went to Call of Duty World War II, one of the worst Call of Duties I have ever played, ever. That game was absolute dog shit. And then they also did Call of Duty Vanguard, another game that is absolute dog shit. And now they're on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. So when I look at all of those Call of Duties that Sledgehammer has worked on, I think one thing and one thing only: this game's gonna suck. Like, it's just that obvious to me. So, and it's not just IGN that's saying this game is bad. It's a bunch of other people, like YouTubers are saying it's bad. Other critics are saying it's bad. It's just a combination of it being a bad story. Does that mean that Call of Duty's not going to sell well because the story sucks? No, look at Ghost. Ghost sold well, despite the fact that its story was considered the worst in the franchise. And even with Vanguard being a complete miss in terms of Call of Duty and what people wanted. No one wanted a World War II Call of Duty anymore. They got their fill with World War II, and that was it. Okay, let's move on from World War II. We don't need this anymore. We saw how bad it is. Let's not go back to this. And then they went back anyways with Vanguard, and we realized, okay, look, we really don't want this. Please stop doing this. And that still sold decently well. And it had nothing to do with Warzone at all. So it was just kind of a weird side thing. Whereas now all of like Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2 and 3 have all been integrated into Warzone. So this is going to sell well despite the fact that it's reviewing bad. And I also need to say this, is that what's crazy about all these reviews, right? I talked about before how there's bias against Xbox, and I legitimately believe so. I 100% believe that these reviewers don't like Xbox, and they rate the games as such. And I do think that. I know that there's some outliers, right? You still have Halo Infinite, which reviewed very well. You have Forza Horizon 5, which reviewed phenomenally well. And you have Hi-Fi Rush, which also reviewed pretty well too. So you do have these outliers, of course, Ori and all that, Cuphead. These games all review very well. But it's just, there's some that just don't for some reason. But the thing is about all that is when I go back and I'm playing Quantum Break and I'm enjoying this game and I'm looking at these scores and they're saying it's 7 out of 10. To me, it's not a 7 out of 10. And that's what really matters. When you go back and you play Rise Son of Rome and it's actually feels like an 8 out of 10 for you, 9 out of 10 maybe, that's what matters. It doesn't matter what these people are telling you. It doesn't matter if you get Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and you enjoy the story and you don't think it's a 4 out of 10. It doesn't matter then. It doesn't matter what IGN says. It doesn't matter what Kotaku says, right? That game is good to you. And it feels like it's worth it to you. And that's all that really matters. But is that what you want to hear? No. What you want to hear is there is bias in the media against Xbox. And it is blatant. And even Xbox knows this. And they have to figure out a way to overcome this hurdle. So hopefully they start releasing games on a great cadence and these games get critically and commercially loved and things change. And maybe with this Activision Blizzard buyout, maybe things will change because of how massive Xbox is now. It's kind of hard to ignore. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoy talking about Xbox and you enjoy talking about games that are a little bit more clinically advisable, then you're in the right place. And be sure to hit that subscribe and like and comment and notification. And I don't have a join button, but I won't have one for a while, probably at all. Twitter and Xbox and stuff, all that. That's what you do. You do all those things, so that way you can see more. But what do you guys think? Do you think that bias is actually real, or do you think these games are actually bad? Is that what it is? Is that what's going on here? And do you think that maybe these stories that are directed in a negative light towards Xbox actually true? And there is no such thing as a media bias. Let me know. But thanks for stopping by. I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. And remember, take it easy.